everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome to the House of Nostalgia. This channel is about actors, movies, musicians, authors, and just memorable events from our past. One day I was in a beauty supply store and I heard Pieces of a Dream's 1981 hit Warm Weather, and it stopped me in my tracks because I forgot about that song and I hadn't heard that song in years. And that's called a nostalgic moment. And since I have a lot of those moments, I decided to name this channel that. Today's video is about the late actor Mantan Moreland and his success as a comedy actor, and how did other actors feel about him. How do I feel about him now compared to how I felt about him while watching his older movies back in the day? He passed away in 1973, so by the time I watched his movies, he was no longer with us. And I'm curious to know if Spike Lee made a movie about him. So don't forget to like, comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Mantan Moreland was born on September the 3rd, 1902 in Monroe, Louisiana to Marcella and Frank Moreland. Moreland ran away from home pretty early. Nobody knows for sure how old he was, but his family was saying somewhere around his early teens. He started performing in minstrel shows, and he also joined the circus and performed in the Chitlin circuit. Moreland mastered his comedic skills during this time period, and he started doing vaudeville performances. Now he teamed up with Ben Carter, and this is when they come up with their famous comedic conversation act. They are talking, but neither one finish a sentence because they already know what each other is going to say, and it is amazing to watch. Moreland performed on the hit stage play Blackbirds of 1928, but he got his big break in 1933 playing a night watchman in the 11-minute movie short That's the Spirit. He appeared in over 300 movies like Cabin in the Sky, Professor Creeps, Mantan Runs for Mayor, and Mantan Messes Up. These movies were all filmed in the 40s, so it's safe to say that he was a success. He was so successful that Hollywood was considering him as a replacement after the passing of Shemp Howard, which would have made him one of the legendary Three Stooges. Now, one of his famous movie roles was playing the character Birmingham Brown in the Charlie Chan movie series. He starred in 17 of these movies playing Chan's scary, Google-eyed chauffeur, which was his nickname, by the way. The Charlie Chan movies were very popular in the 30s and 40s. I wouldn't be surprised if reruns were still playing somewhere today. The Charlie Chan book character was centered around a Chinese detective with a thick Chinese accent, but in the movies, the character was more successfully played by Sidney Toler and Warner Oland, who were two white actors. Now, Hollywood's defense of this was that it wasn't enough Chinese actors around to play Chan at the time, and this was in the 30s. Moreland worked alongside of other black comedians like Nipsey Russell, Red Fox, Moms Mabley, Godfrey Cambridge, Bill Cosby, and even Joe Louis the Boxer, just to name a few. His comedic style consisted of him playing nervous, mindless, buckeye characters, and I know that sounds harsh, but this is what he did. This was his acting style, and he wasn't by himself. It was other successful black actors who played characters just like that, which was Stephen Fetchit, Willie Best, known as Sleep and Eat, Amos and Andy's Alvin Childress, Spencer Williams, and Tim Moore. Now, during the early 50s, Moreland briefly had his own television show called Club Mantan, and this variety show didn't last long, but he was able to feature black actors, comedians, and musicians who may or may not have ever been able to showcase their talents on national television. The 50s also brought about the civil rights movement and the fight against segregation, and even black movies were shifting to better quality, like Carmen Jones, Porgy and Bess, and black people were even being portrayed better than the years before in white movies. Now, we were still playing maids, chauffeurs, and butlers, but it was a new crop of actors and actresses who were not playing those types of roles, and Moreland took notice of this. In a May 9, 1959 article in the Afro-American newspaper, Moreland spoke out on his desire to move on from his past movies, stating, and I quote, "Times has changed and movies are growing up, and I think my characterization should keep pace with the times. Why shouldn't the role be written so that I solve the murder sometimes? At least let me be cast as a little smarter than I have been," end quote. He had no desire to play those older roles anymore, and why would he? You had young black actors coming along in the 50s like Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, and no one would want to continue on with that form of acting. He wanted growth and more diversity in his movie roles. Now, when I did the video on William Marshall, he stated that Amos and Andy took the progress of black people backwards. Now, I didn't really put much thought into that statement because I felt that it was more than just them that had that acting style. But now I understand. Here they come on the scene with the same old thing during the early start of change in the 50s. And that's what I believe he meant by that statement. Now, The Watermelon Man will always be one of my favorites, and Moreland had a cameo appearance, and I did not know that was him. I can't remember how I found out that was him, but I just learned this a year ago. He really did change his style of comedy, and so did Stephen Fetchit. He had a cameo appearance in Mom's Mabley movie, Amazing Grace, and I wouldn't have known it was him without reading the credits. These two actors decided that they no longer wanted to represent themselves the way they did earlier in their careers. They were well liked in the industry, and their fellow actors was here for it. The movie Bamboozled come out in 2000. And this was the first and last time I saw this movie, but I'm going to go by what I remember. And it's a lot that I could say about this movie and how on point Spike Lee was, but maybe I'll make a video about it. Now, two of the stars of this minstrel show was named Man Ray and Sleep and Eat. Now, the name Man Ray sounds pretty close to Mantan, and as I said earlier, Willie Best was known as Sleep and Eat. Of course, in the movie, you had people who despised this minstrel show, but it was a success. And what I got out of the movie about these two characters was that Man Ray was excited about being able to showcase his talent, and Sleep and Eat wasn't feeling it. Now the tables turned, and Man Ray wasn't feeling it anymore, whereas Sleep and Eat started to like the fame and fortune. Now, I don't know if Willie Best ever wanted better roles for himself, but as we know now, Mantan did. Now, that could have been just one person's thought to me, but it was used through two different characters. You enjoy the success, but after the curtains close and you are alone, how do you really feel? Now, I'm going to give a quick little story. When Little John and the East Side Boys come out, one was called Sam, and in his defense, his real name was Sammy, and the other was called Bo. Okay, we got Sambo. And they would be photographed wrapped in the Confederate flag. Now, I don't think anyone really paid attention to this while they were making hits, but one day Mos Def called them out. And not long after that, it was only Little John, and his career blew up, of course. Now, some people would have called that a modern day minstrel show. I know Mos Def felt that way. I liked Mantan Moreland, and I liked him even more today, knowing that he wanted change and growth in his career. He felt it was time for him to move on from his previous roles, and he deserved change. He passed away September the 28th, 1973, at 71 years of age in Hollywood, California, from a cerebral hemorrhage. He was survived by his wife and daughter. I would like to thank you all so much for watching this video on Mr. Mantan Moreland.